Hi everyone, and welcome to Creative Chelsey. Today I'm excited to share with you my first set of alternative cards using the August 2023 paper pumpkin kit called Meaningful Flowers. This beautiful kit creates 8 handmade cards, 4 in 2 different designs. These are the intended cards that you can make with the kit. If you would like to watch me unbox the kit and create these cards, you can click on the playlist and I will link it up here in the top right corner. Each month I take the contents from the paper pumpkin kits and make alternative projects. Today I am sharing with you 2 cards that I made from one of the card bases. These cards have the same fun fold template. I call them pop-up box cards. But by flipping it over, you can get 2 different designs. A front pop-up box and a back pop-up box. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get updates when I post a new video. I would love to be your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. If you're interested in getting your own paper pumpkin subscription, please use the link in the description below to subscribe. I'm going to be making both these cards at about the same time because they have very similar steps. So we're going to start with the card base. This card base has no stamping on it. We're going to be using a lot of the contents from the kit. This one, however, I wanted to create a nice simple pattern on the cardstock just to provide a little interest to those areas. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on one of my card bases. I do want to point out that my card base is a little bit smaller. It is 8 1/4 inches by 5.5 inches. So it's just 1/4 smaller than a normal card base size. I'm going to stamp in Garden Green, which is the same color of cardstock that I'm using for my card base. And I'm just going to focus on the left and right edges and just try to fill up about 3 inches or so of space along the edge. It doesn't really matter how you stamp it. What I'm doing is kind of creating a pattern, starting with one that's vertical, then going to one that's horizontal, and then we've got one that is upside down vertical, and then the last one just kind of fills in that opening. So it's going to look something like this, and I'm going to repeat that here on the other side as well. Here you can see a close-up of that. So now that I've done that, we are going to score the card bases, and they're scored exactly the same way. And I will make sure to place a template on my blog, and the link to my blog you can also find in the description below. So if you'd like to print off a PDF template for this card base, you can go there and find that. So just to make things really simple, we're going to score on each side at 2 locations. We're going to score first at 1.5 inches and then second at 2.5 inches, and then we'll flip and do it the same way. So start at 1.5. Make sure not to use your cutting blade, only your scoring blade, and then slide down to 2.5, and then rotate and repeat. 1.5, and 2.5. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to my second card base. So now we're going to fold, and depending on how we fold it will show us if we have a front or a back pop-up. So this is the front because that middle section pops forward, and this is a back because the middle section goes to the back. So for the back, we fold towards the middle on the front of the card base. And then use a bone folder. That will help make everything nice and crisp. Okay, so we fold to the front. So if we want it in the back, we cover the middle section with the flaps. Okay, so it's going to look something like that. So I'm going to put that back there. For the front pop-up box, we flip it over and we fold away or behind the middle section. And we're making Z folds. So we fold along that inside, one closest to the inside of the card base, and then we fold away. Okay, I'll show you how that looks. So this is a front pop-up because this is the front of it. So you can see how we fold over and then out. So the next step is to cut some of the card base and envelope into different sections so that they're ready to put on our card. I'm going to take the card base and cut it at about 4 1/4 inches. And that should remove this front flap. If you have any extra, just go ahead and trim that off. All right, let's also do our envelope. So we're going to remove just the smallest piece from all 3 sides of the envelope so that we can open it all up. Okay, so we're going to have these 2 pieces now. I do use this for an alternative, so don't throw this away. We will use that. But today we're going to be using this pattern, and remember, we don't want to cut that piece off. So we are going to next cut this to fit the length of our card base. So the length here that we need is 5 3/8. So go ahead, find 5 3/8 and cut that. And then we're going to cut from the left side. I'm going to go ahead and just trim off a little bit because we have this angle here that we don't want. So I'm going to even that out and throw that away. And then from here, we're going to cut 2 pieces. I want them to be 1 3/8. And that will give me a little bit of that piece left over so that we can cut this down and make it work for the front of our card. Okay, so now I have these 2 pieces here. So the middle section is going to be 3 1/8 by 5 3/8. Okay, let's go ahead and add these pieces and then we can move on to the next step. So this one is the front pop-up. So we're going to place this right in the center with a little border all the way around. And you can open these so that you can access those panels. And then we'll grab our card base number 2. This just sits right in the bottom left corner on that front left panel. So I'm going to add some liquid adhesive to this area. You don't want to go too far into the space because you do need it to have no adhesive here because it's kind of free floating. So go ahead and just line that up. Okay. So let's go ahead and work on the center images. So for this first card, we're going to cut down the forget-me-not flowers from the front of the envelope. And we're going to go with something that's about 1 3/8 inches by 2 3/8. So let's start with that 2 3/8. So that's just a little bit smaller than 2 1/2 inches. And then if you hold on to this, you can use that for a future card. And then this one we're going to cut to 1 3/8. So just a little bit smaller than 1 1/2 inches. And you can kind of make sure that you're not cutting it right down the middle of a flower. And if that's happening, then go ahead and trim off a little bit on that side and try again so that it's more centered. I'm going to trim just a little bit more off. There we go. Okay, so we have a nice skinny little image here. For the center of the second card, I wanted to mimic that same look where it goes from the yellow to the green. And so I chose to do some blending with blending brushes on just some basic white cardstock that I have. So the yellow I'm using is crushed curry, and I am going to use garden green. I'm blending on a larger piece of cardstock because I like being able to trim it down so I don't get those harsh edges. So I'm going to do the garden green about halfway. Make it darker on the bottom than on the top. So you can see along the edges how you get a much darker ink. And by trimming that off, then it can create more of a smooth blend from the colors. So I have a yellow blending brush, and I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing, but on the top now. And you do want to bring the colors together, so do some overlapping where they meet. And you'll get something that looks like this. So once we have that done, we're going to go ahead and trim this as well to fit. So I'm going to cut just 1/4 of an inch off, and then I'm going to measure it. So just cut a little bit off one side, and then you're going to measure it to 3 1/8 inches. And then we're going to cut just 1/16 off of the top and bottom, and that's going to give it the right measurement, which is 5 3/8 inches. Okay, so you're able to trim it down, and you can create this really smooth blend all the way across your cardstock. So this is going to get added right to the center. Just like that. It's a really fun look. Okay, so now we are ready for this central image and greeting. So for our first card, let me move card number 2 out of the way. So our first card we've cut down, and we're going to add this to a piece of garden green cardstock that is 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches. So it's going to give us that same size border that we've been using on our cards. And we're going to add this to the center of our card base. But before we do that, I want to add a little bit of twine. So I'm just going to place some adhesive right in the center where I know I'm going to be adding my image. And then in the kit, they gave us a little bit of linen thread. So I'm going to use that linen thread, but I'm not going to cut it to a specific size. I'm going to base it on the size of the card base, and I'll show you what I mean. So I want to do a double loop. So I'm going to start with the edge, and I'm going to go to the edge of the card front on the kind of the bottom right or middle right area, and then I take my finger and loop the first loop kind of where I want it to be and connect. So you can see that I'm not going outside of that center panel. And then I do the same thing here. Okay. And then I'm going to double it up some more. I'm going to straighten this out. So another one. You can make this one a little bigger or a little bit smaller. I'm going to go a little bit smaller on this second one. And then once you've got everything where you want it, you like how it looks, you can go ahead and cut it off of the spool. And the nice thing about doing it this way is that you are getting exactly what you need from the linen thread instead of cutting it and not knowing if that's how much you need or not. Okay, so from here, I'm going to add a dimensional over the linen thread to hold everything in place, and then one on the top and one on the bottom. And then this just goes right in the center over the linen thread. And you do want to leave a little bit of space for your greeting here at the bottom. And the greeting I decided to use is "Your friendship is unforgettable." And I'm just going to do that in garden green ink as well. And just stamp that right underneath on the card base. And it's going to end up looking something like this. So for this middle area, I wanted to have a greeting on a circle and make sure that it's above the grass. And then it felt really plain, and so I decided to do some fussy cutting of those flowers. So let's begin with the greeting. So this greeting I'm using "You are capable of amazing things." And I'm going to stamp it on a basic white circle that's about 2 inches in diameter. And I'm going to add this with a dimensional in the center, and that's going to help me be able to tuck things around. And you want to make sure that you place it in an area where it won't get covered up by this. So somewhere about there. And make sure it's in the center. So these pieces are for the back of my cards. And I'm stamping in garden green ink the flowers, and I'm going to stamp one on the left and one on the right of those pieces in the bottom corners. So one on the left and one on the right. And then for my center, I need 2 more flowers. So I have a piece of scratch paper here that I'm going to use, and just stamp 2 flowers, and then we'll fussy cut those out after we're done coloring. So to color these, I wanted to do a mimic of the flowers that were on the card base. So I am coloring in blue around the edge, leaving some white in the center, and then yellow right in the middle of the flower. So the colors I'm using are the Stampin' Up! Watercolor pencils, and I have Pacific Point, Daffodil Delight, and Garden Green. And if you just have regular color pencils, you can do blue, yellow, and green from those as well. So to get the white center, I kind of just did a little line all the way around my flower. I'll give you a close-up so that I know where to stop coloring the blue. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in the blue around that line. And that's the outside, so I'm leaving the inside untouched. I'll give you a close-up. And then the yellow goes right in the center. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and repeat that for these other flowers here. So I finished doing all of the flowers, and now I'm just going to do the stems and leaves with Garden Green. Okay, so that flower's all done. I'm just going to go ahead and redo the exact same thing to the other 3 flowers, and then I'll come right back. Okay, so now that you've done all your coloring, these two are ready to add to our card. But let's go ahead and fussy cut out these two flowers. So first I'm going to start with just an outline all the way around the flowers. So once you have your flower cut out, we're going to separate these top 3 flowers from the bottom 3 flowers. And I'm going to do that right here on this flower. And so I'm going to keep this leaf with this petal, but I'm going to cut around the petal that goes over the stem. And this is the stem that holds this flower. I'm not going to keep this stem here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut around that flower, come down, and then you can come back up. You're not going to see this base, so that part doesn't really matter. And then you cut up. Do you see where this other leaf is? We're going to keep that other leaf. And now we have separated the tall flowers from the bottom 3 flowers. Okay, and this part doesn't really matter. It's nice to have a little extra card stock so that we can add some adhesive and tuck it underneath, but you're not going to see that. You're only going to see the flowers and the leaves. So let's go ahead and do that again. I'm going to find this large flower here and just cut along the petal. Stop at the stem that's holding the petal and go all the way down. And then you can come right back up and you're going to cut right along the edge of that leaf there. So do you see how I'm separating that leaf? Hopefully you can. And now we've got our 4 pieces for around our greeting. So I'm going to just use a little liquid glue and I'm going to tuck these flowers. If I need to separate them some more, I can do that too. Just going to tuck them underneath and put some in the corners. So one right there. Let's do another. These are the larger flowers that were at the bottom. I'm going to add those first, just kind of opposite ends. Make sure they don't go over the edge of your blended paper because these 2 pieces do need to fold together so that it fits inside your envelope. You don't want to smash your flowers. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit more. And then we have a little bit that we can add, maybe over here on this side. Okay. And if you want to do the same, we could even cut these apart here if you want. Add a little adhesive, and then they'll be able to fit a little bit better in these smaller spaces. So one there maybe, and another one on the other side. Okay. So have some fun with arranging those flowers there. Then on the back, we're going to add our flowers. So the one on the left is the one I'm going to add on this one. And I did that just because this is on the left. So I thought it would be nice to add it in the same location. And it just goes right there in the center. This is a great place where you can add your message for your card. And the one on the right is for my other card. Just open that. Make sure they're going the right direction though. You don't want to put them on upside down. So I didn't add any other embellishments to this card since I've got the little bit of linen thread there. So this card is all done. You can also add another greeting if you want near the bottom. For this card, I thought it would be fun to add a little bit of the clear enamel dots, maybe is what they're called. And I just placed them in the center of each of these flowers. So a large one in some of these larger flowers here. And then some of the small ones can be placed on the smaller flowers. So I put the 2 full flowers here in the bottom, have a large, and then the 3 other flowers have a small dot in the center. And that card is all done. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching me create these fun fold cards using one of the card bases from the August 2023 Paper Pumpkin Kit. If you are interested in getting your own subscription to Paper Pumpkin, please do so using the link in the description below. If you would like to get written instructions, see close-up images, or access the free PDF template for this fun fold card, you can visit my blog, creativechelsey.com. Thanks so much for watching. Have a creative day. Bye.